Deen.
Yeah.
Because when I hear Deen in a Western or, modern context, my brain instantly translates it to religion.
Which is how it's almost always used today.
Right. I think of private rituals, going to a mosque or a church, praying, fasting, reading scripture. But the analysis we're looking at insists this is a massive mistranslation.
A structural error.
Yeah. It claims that reducing Deen to mere religion is like the first major systemic error.
And the structural breakdown in the documents maps this out very clearly. If we look at the blueprints for Dini Fitrat Deen Islam, it is never, ever defined merely as a religion.
Never.
No. It is defined as a complete unified code of life, and this code is structurally bifurcated.
Okay, bifurcated, like split in two.
Right. Imagine a line drawn straight down the center of human existence. On one side of that line, you have individual life, which is the private affairs.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side, you have collective life, the public and systemic affairs.
Okay, let's unpack those two sides, because this is crucial. Let's start with the individual life.
Oh.
The charts indicate that this private domain consists of myths, dogmas, rituals, and modes of worship. So this is basically what the modern world technically classifies as religion.
Correct. The private sphere is your internal belief system. It's how you pray, how you fast, the theology you hold in your heart.
Right.
But Dini Fitrat Deen Islam does not stop at the door of your house or your place of worship. It crosses the line into the collective life.
Into the public square.
Exactly. This public domain consists of the political, social, and economic systems of a state. It dictates how the economy functions, how justice is administered, how laws are legislated. It is the full, comprehensive operating system for society.
Okay, to ground this, let's bring in a really specific historical anchor provided in our materials, because it perfectly illustrates the boundaries of that private domain.
The quote from 1947.
Yeah, this is regarding the birth of Pakistan. This is the verbatim historical quote from Quaidi Azam, delivered on August 11th, 1947.
Let's hear it.
He says, "You are free. You are free to go to your temples, you are free to go to your mosques, or to any other places of worship in the state of Pakistan. You may belong to any religion or caste or creed that has nothing to do with the business of the state."
It's a famous quote.
Right. And initially that sounds like a totally standard secular declaration of religious freedom.
Yeah.
But how does this specific analysis interpret that quote?
Well, if we examine that quote through the lens of the Deen chart we just talked about, Quaidi Azam is perfectly articulating the private dimension of Dini Fitrat Dini Islam.
Just the private side.
Exactly. The analysis links this directly to Quranic verse 2.256, which states, "Let there be no compulsion in religion."
So he is basically affirming the absolute freedom of the individual life domain. Like you want to be Christian, Hindu, Shia, Sunni, atheist.
That is your private affair.
Right. There's zero structural compulsion. You are protected.
Precisely. In the private sphere, freedom of belief is structurally guaranteed by the natural law of Dini Fitrat Dini Islam. The state has no jurisdiction over your heart or your private rituals. Wow, okay.
But this is exactly where the profound divergence happens.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens to the collective affair?
Yeah, what happens to the business of the state?
Exactly.
Because if the state says, we don't care about your private religion, what code is the state itself actually running on?
And that's the million-dollar question.
The material argues that modern secularism essentially hijacked this private affair principle. Like, it looked at the Islamic concept of 2.256, no compulsion in private belief, copied it, and then fundamentally severed it from the rest of the system.
It is a systemic amputation. I mean, secularism says, yes, keep your private rituals. We will protect your right to go to your mosque or temple. But then it draws a hard line and decrees. However, the collective law of the land, the economic machinery, the political structure, those no longer belong to divine law. We are replacing that half of the system.
Okay, let me try an analogy to see if I'm tracking the mechanics of this. Think of it like a smartphone operating system.
Okay, I like that. The blueprints are essentially saying that you can customize your personal apps however you want. You want the prayer app, the fitness app, the meditation app that represents your private beliefs.
Right.
Verse 2.256.
Right.
You have total freedom to download whatever you want. But the foundational operating system, like the iOS or Android code that actually runs the phone, manages the battery, dictates the security protocols, and routes the data that collective law has to run on a unified natural code, which is Deen Ithatrat, Deen Islam.
That is an excellent way to visualize it. I mean, secularism allows you to keep all your personalized apps, but it completely rips out the foundational operating system and replaces it with the completely different man-made code.
It just swaps the OS.
Yeah. And the structural consequences of this substitution are severe. The analysis highlights two specific verses, 3.19 and 3.85, to explain why this partial adoption is mathematically and structurally rejected.
Okay, so verse 3.19 says, "For Allah, Islam is the only deen." And 3.85 says, "Whomsoever wishes to adopt any deen other than Islam, Allah will not accept it." But I want to make sure I understand the mechanics here, not just the theology. Like, why is it rejected? If someone is still praying 5 times a day, still fasting, still keeping their private apps running perfectly, why does the system crash?
Because of partial obedience?
Partial obedience.
Yeah. If you acknowledge the divine architecture in the mosque, but actively deny it in the parliament, in the judicial courts, and in the banking sector, you have fractured the operating system.
Oh.
You are adopting Islam merely as a ritual, a myth, or a private dogma. You are reducing a universal collective code into a localized personal sect.
So it's not a complete deen anymore.
Exactly. The mechanics of Deen Ithatrat, Dini Islam, require total systemic integration. If you reject its collective systemic laws, the entire framework is compromised.
Okay, so if Deen Ithatrat, Dini Islam is this complete unified operating system of nature, what exactly is the counterfeit operating system that replaced it? It's like if they ripped out the original collective code, what did they install in its place?
That leads us directly into the systemic anatomy of secularism. The documents define secularism in incredibly stark mechanical terms. They actually call it the one-eyed religion of a godless world.
Wow. One-eyed religion.
Yeah.
That implies it's structurally blind to half of reality.
Yes.
Like it sees the material, the private, but is entirely blind to the divine collective order.
Precisely. And this is where the prime difference is established. It all comes down to a specific phrasing regarding authority.
Okay.
In Deen Ithatrat, Dini Islam, the law of the land is in the name of Allah. But in secularism, the law of the land is in the name of the country-state flag god idol.
This is the crux of the entire structural audit, isn't it?
Yeah.
We really need to look closely at the mechanics of authority here, because human beings cannot simply pass laws in a vacuum.
No, they can't.
Authority has to be anchored to something absolute, or at least something perceived as absolute.
Yeah.
If you remove Allah as the anchor for the law of the land, you are mathematically and legally forced to invent a replacement anchor.
Yeah.
You can't just have a legal system floating in midair.
Right. And that replacement anchor is the country-state flag god idol.